You know that I'm a huge believer in the disciplined following of a methodical sales process by a sales rep and a sales team. One thing in doing so that you really need to be aware of is losing sight of the mirror image of that sales process, and that is the customer's decision process. I mean, the customer's perspective is always critically important, to state the obvious. And I find that by keeping three questions in mind, it's actually three sets of questions, but keeping three core questions in mind as you're working with the customer really helps to keep that customer perspective and the importance of a customer decision process in mind as you're executing your sales process. And the first of those questions is, what is the process for making this decision? And typically in any organization, there'll be multiple people involved with making that decision, and each is going to want a different set of information. Someone may want a demonstration, someone may want reference accounts, somebody else may want a detailed financial analysis. Could be a whole series of things. So the first part of answering that question is understanding the sets of information that each decision influencer is going to want to have from you about the product and or service that you're recommending. When all those recommendations are put together, they will go to a decision maker who will look at the weightings of the various individuals. So for example, Mary might vote no, but Sally and Jane have more important votes, more heavily weighted votes in that decision. But in any case, that decision maker is going to weigh the relative merits and importance of each of those recommendations from the decision influencers and ultimately make that decision. So step number one, how will the decision be made, is understanding all those things that I just talked about. The second point is, what are the decision criteria? And again, each one of those individuals is going to have their own set of criteria. The most important ones obviously will be the decision makers criteria. And there are things like, for example, they might want a minimum 30% return on investment, or the project must be completed within 90 days, or I need a discounted cash flow that's greater than $100,000. There's one thing, or actually two things, that are in common through all these decision criteria. First, they're very concrete, and secondly, they're quantified. So when I say something like a 30% return on investment, and that's as concrete as you can get. It's very clear what's required and quantified with that 30%. Or the project needs to be completed, very concrete, within 90 days. Again, the quantification. So question number two to keep in mind is, what are those decision criteria? And then the third one, really the most telling, and it's the one that if a rep can execute it well, can really build a lot of credibility, develop a lot of trust on the part of the customer. And that third question is, why are those decision criteria that we just talked about? Why are those decision criteria the decision criteria? And the point here is, it needs to tie back, the decision criterion, that is, each one of them needs to tie back to some kind of a corporate objective. So, for example, I talked about 30% ROI as one of the decision criteria. Why is that a decision criteria? Well, for example, the board of directors of that corporation might have set a hurdle rate for any kind of investment at 30%. So now I've got a piece of information I can use not only for this current opportunity, but if I have other ideas that could have a 30% or better return on investment, I know I've got a pretty decent chance of being able to put that additional recommendation forward and having a chance of doing that. Another example might be the project has to be done in 90 days. Well, why? Why is that so important? Why is that a decision criterion? And the answer might be, well, we need to have this project completed, Project A completed within 90 days, because we need to have Project B completed within 120 days. And we know that Project B is going to take at least 15 days. We want a 15-day cushion so that we can have Project B completed within 120 days of start date. Well, why does it need to be completed in 120 days? And that is, well, we need to have that one completed in order to reach our corporate goal of on-time delivery of our projects as requested and specified by the customer. So the reason I went through that long example is some of the chains of logic from a decision criteria back through a series of tactics and strategies and objectives till I finally get back to that corporate objective might be a long chain. And the value in it is if as a sales rep you can help your customer think through those things and make sure that the decision criteria that have been chosen actually do directly tie back to some kind of a corporate objectives. In a lot of cases, you're going to do a heck of a service for a customer who may not have thought through all of those types of things. And in fact, once I know what those criteria are, how they tie back to a corporate objective, and how the decision process is going to be executed for this particular recommendation, man, in spades, absolutely in spades, I have kept the customer's decision process in mind. Not only that, the customer's welfare in mind, and I am very clearly positioned in the mind of all the decision maker and influencers, that I really have put myself in place as a part of the team, as a part of the customer executive team, and I really have their best interests at heart. And I think that's just it's a critically important thing to do.